In 1900, sponge divers off the Greek island of Antikythera found a shipwreck, 150 feet down. They brought up bronze statues, marble sculptures, pottery, treasures from the ancient world. And among the artifacts, a corroded lump of bronze no bigger than a shoe ox. For decades, it sat in storage at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, catalogued, forgotten. Just another piece of oxidized metal from the sea. Then, in 1951, a researcher noticed something. Through cracks in the corrosion, he saw the edge of a gear, then another gear, then inscriptions in ancient Greek. It took another 20 years to properly X-ray the object, and what they found inside changed everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. Over 30 precision-cut bronze gears, differential mechanisms, epicyclic gearing systems, a hand crank input, multiple output dials showing astronomical calculations. It was a computer, an analog mechanical computer, built around 100 to 150 BC. It predicted solar eclipses, tracked lunar cycles, calculated the positions of planets, displayed the timing of the Olympic Games, and it did all of this with mechanical precision that wouldn't be matched again until the invention of astronomical clocks in the 14th century, 1400 years later. The device was so advanced that when it was first studied, scientists assumed it was a medieval artifact that had somehow been mixed into an ancient shipwreck. It couldn't possibly be 2,000 years old. Nothing that sophisticated existed in 100 BC. Except it did. Carbon dating, archaeological context, scientific analysis, all confirmed it. The Antikythera mechanism was real, ancient, and impossible. But here's the truly disturbing part. It wasn't unique. Ancient texts reference similar devices. Cicero mentions Archimedes building mechanical spheres that modeled the heavens. Other Roman writers described astronomical machines in temples and private collections. But all of them disappeared, except this one, found by accident at the bottom of the sea. Welcome to the Behind History, where we follow the evidence because sometimes the evidence tells us history is wrong. Today, we're documenting advanced machines from the ancient and medieval world, devices that worked, that solved complex problems, that represented peaks of technological achievement. And then they vanished, not gradually, suddenly, completely, as if entire fields of knowledge were deliberately erased. This isn't speculation. These machines existed. We have the artifacts, the descriptions, the archaeological evidence, but the knowledge of how to build them disappeared. And the question we're asking is simple. Why? Let's examine the Antikythera mechanism in detail, because understanding what it could do tells us how advanced ancient technology really was. The device is approximately 34 centimeters tall, 18 centimeters wide, and 9 centimeters deep, roughly the size of a mantel clock. Inside are at least 30 bronze gears, though researchers believe there were originally over 40 before the mechanism was damaged. The front dial shows the Greek zodiac and the Egyptian calendar. The user turns a crank on the side. As the crank turns, the gears calculate and display 1. The position of the sun in the zodiac, 2. The position of the moon including its phase, 3. The positions of the 5 planets known to ancient Greeks, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, 4. The timing of solar and lunar eclipses, 5. The dates of the Olympic Games and other pan-Hellenic festivals. But here's what makes it extraordinary. The mechanism accounts for irregularities in celestial motion. The moon doesn't orbit Earth at constant speed. Its orbit is elliptical. It moves faster when closer to Earth, slower when farther away. This is described by Kepler's second law of planetary motion. But Kepler didn't publish that law until 1609. The Antikythera mechanism models this variable motion using a pin-and-slot device attached to one of the gears. As the gear rotates, the pin follows an off-center track, creating variable speed output. It's a mechanical analog of Kepler's law, built 1700 years before Kepler. Modern reconstructions of the device have been built by researchers at University College London and the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. The reconstructions work. They accurately predict eclipses and planetary positions using only the mechanical computation of bronze gears. But here's the critical question. If the Greeks could build this in 100 BC, why aren't there more of them? The answer isn't that they couldn't build more, it's that they were expensive. The precision required to cut bronze gears with triangular teeth, to calibrate multiple gear ratios, to inscribe astronomical data on the dials. This required master craftsmen, months of work, rare materials. The Antikythera mechanism was a luxury item, probably commissioned by a wealthy Roman patron or a scientific institution. The shipwreck that carried it was traveling from Greece to Rome. The ship also carried wine amphoras, glassware, and fine art. This was a cargo of treasures for the Roman elite. The mechanism was one of those treasures, a scientific instrument, a status symbol, proof of Greek intellectual superiority. But when Rome fell, when the Mediterranean trade routes collapsed, when libraries burned and workshops closed, the knowledge required to build such devices disappeared. By 500 AD, no one remembered how to make precision gears. The mathematics was lost. The astronomy was simplified. The technology regressed. And for 1400 years, nothing comparable existed. Until European clockmakers in the 1300s began building astronomical clocks. But even they didn't match the sophistication of the Antikythera mechanism until the 1500s. The knowledge didn't slowly fade. It was lost suddenly, completely, as if an entire scientific tradition was cut off. In 672 AD, the Byzantine Empire faced annihilation. The Arab Caliphate had conquered Syria, Egypt, and North Africa. Now they were besieging Constantinople itself. The Byzantine fleet was outnumbered. The walls would not hold forever. Defeat seemed inevitable. Then Byzantine ships deployed a new weapon, a liquid that burned on water, that couldn't be extinguished by water. In fact, water made it burn hotter. That clung to enemy ships and sailors like napalm, burning through wood and flesh. The Arab fleet panicked. Ships burned. Men jumped overboard, only to find the water itself on fire. The siege was broken. Constantinople survived. The weapon was called Greek fire, and it saved the Byzantine Empire for another 700 years. But here's the mystery. We don't know what it was made of. Contemporary sources describe it. Byzantine chroniclers, Arab historians, Western European observers, they all confirm Greek fire existed. It was real. It was devastatingly effective. The Byzantines used it for centuries, in naval battles, in siege defense. As late as the 12th century, Byzantine ships were still deploying Greek fire against Italian and Arab fleets. But the formula was a state secret, guarded by the Byzantine imperial family, transmitted only within one specific family of Byzantine engineers, the descendants of Kallinikos of Heliopolis, who supposedly invented it. And when that family died out, when the Byzantine Empire finally fell in 1453, the secret died with them. We know what Greek fire could do. Ancient sources describe its properties. It burned on water. Water intensified the flames. It could only be extinguished by sand, vinegar, or old urine, according to Byzantine military manuals. It was projected from bronze tubes called siphons, mounted on ships. The flames were accompanied by thunder and smoke, and it had a distinctive smell. Modern chemists have tried to recreate it. The leading theory, a mixture of petroleum, quicklime, sulfur, and naphtha. When quicklime contacts water, it creates an exothermic reaction, heat. That heat ignites the petroleum and naphtha, The sulfur makes it sticky and helps it burn hotter. Napalm uses a similar principle, petroleum thickened with a gelling agent to make it stick and burn longer. But no modern recreation perfectly matches the historical descriptions. Something is missing, some ingredient or technique we can't identify. Greek fire wasn't the only advanced Byzantine technology. They also had automatic fire pumps for fighting fires, advanced hydraulic organs with complex valve systems, pneumatic tools powered by air pressure, mechanical automata, moving statues and animals that awed foreign dignitaries. All described in Byzantine texts, some still existed in the 10th and 11th centuries. Foreign visitors wrote about seeing golden trees with mechanical birds that sang, lions that roared, and thrones that could be mechanically raised to the ceiling. But by 1453, when Constantinople fell, almost all of that technology was gone. The knowledge died, the workshops were destroyed, the engineers fled or were killed, and we're left with descriptions of machines we can't fully replicate. Between 1100 and 1700 AD, swordsmiths in Damascus produced the finest steel in the world, Damascus steel. Blades made from Damascus steel had a distinctive wavy pattern on the surface, like flowing water frozen in metal. But this wasn't just decorative. The pattern indicated the internal structure of the steel. Damascus steel blades were incredibly hard, able to hold a sharp edge, incredibly flexible, able to bend without breaking, strong enough to cut through European swords, so sharp they could reportedly cut a falling silk scarf. European crusaders encountered Damascus steel in battle and were astonished. Their own swords, made of softer European iron, broke against Damascus blades. They tried to buy Damascus swords, tried to capture the smiths, tried to steal the secrets. But the knowledge stayed in Damascus and a few other Middle Eastern cities. And then, around 1750, it vanished. No more Damascus steel was produced. The technique was lost. Swordsmiths tried to recreate it using traditional methods, but failed. The distinctive pattern appeared, but the metal wasn't as strong. Something was missing. For 250 years, metallurgists tried to recreate Damascus steel. They analyzed surviving blades, studied the crystalline structure, identified the carbon content and impurities. What they found: Damascus steel contains carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires. These are nanoscale structures, tubes and wires just a few nanometers wide, embedded in the steel matrix. They give the steel its extraordinary properties. But carbon nanotubes weren't supposed to exist until 1991, when they were first synthesized in a laboratory. Yet, Damascus steel, made in the 1400s, contains them, naturally, created by the forging process. How? Modern research suggests the key was in the raw material. Damascus steel was made from wootz steel ingots imported from India and Sri Lanka. Wootz steel was made from iron ore that contained specific trace elements: vanadium, chromium, manganese, and traces of tungsten. When this ore was smelted in small crucibles using wood charcoal, the trace elements acted as catalysts. During repeated heating and folding, the process of forging the blade, carbon nanotubes formed naturally. But the swordsmiths didn't know about nanotubes. They didn't understand the chemistry. They just knew, use this specific ore from this region, heat it to this temperature, judged by color, fold it this many times, passed down through apprenticeship, quench it in this manner, often trade secrets involving specific water sources or additives. It was artisan knowledge, embodied, not written down, passed from master to apprentice over generations. And when the trade routes changed, when the sources of Indian wootz steel dried up, when political instability disrupted the workshops, the knowledge was lost. By 1750, the last generation of Damascus bladesmiths had died. The ore sources were no longer accessible. The technique was forgotten. Modern metallurgists can now create steel with carbon nanotubes using laboratory techniques, high-temperature furnaces, controlled atmospheres, precisely measured additives. But they can't recreate the original Damascus steel using traditional methods because the crucial element, the specific ore with the right impurities, isn't available anymore. The mines in India and Sri Lanka that produced it are either depleted or their exact locations are unknown. The knowledge existed, the technology worked, and then it vanished. The Pantheon in Rome was built in 126 AD. The dome is 43 meters wide, made entirely of concrete, no steel reinforcement, just concrete. It's still standing, 1900 years later, the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, and it has never needed major structural repairs. Modern concrete bridges start cracking after 50 years. By 100 years, they need replacement. But Roman concrete gets stronger over time. How? The secret is in the mixture. Roman concrete used volcanic ash called pozzolana from the region around Mount Vesuvius and other Italian volcanoes. Mixed with lime and seawater, it creates a chemical reaction that makes the concrete self-healing. When cracks form in Roman concrete, seawater seeps in. The water reacts with the volcanic ash and lime, creating new calcium aluminum silicate hydrate crystals. These crystals fill the cracks. The concrete heals itself. Modern concrete doesn't do this. It's made with Portland cement, a mixture of limestone and clay heated to high temperatures. It's strong, but it's not self-healing. Cracks propagate, water gets in, freeze-thaw cycles expand the cracks. The concrete degrades. Roman concrete, by contrast, actually gets stronger when exposed to seawater. The harsh marine environment that destroys modern concrete reinforces Roman concrete. This has been proven by analyzing Roman harbor structures. Concrete piers built 2,000 years ago are still standing, still structurally sound, in some cases stronger now than when they were built. Modern engineers studying Roman concrete have identified the exact chemical processes. They understand why it works. They can replicate it in laboratories. But we don't use it. Why not? Because it's slow. Roman concrete takes months to fully cure. Modern concrete cures in days. Roman concrete requires volcanic ash from specific sources. Modern Portland cement can be made anywhere using common materials. Roman concrete is better for longevity, but modern concrete is better for economics. It's cheaper, faster, more scalable. So we chose speed over durability, profit over permanence. But here's the tragedy. The knowledge of how to make Roman concrete was lost for over 1,000 years. Between the fall of Rome in 476 AD and the Renaissance in the 1400s, European builders forgot how to make concrete. Medieval churches and castles are built of stone, wood, brick, not concrete. The technique disappeared. Why? Because knowledge requires transmission. Roman engineers learned through apprenticeship. Master builders trained apprentices on construction sites. The knowledge was practical, not theoretical. When Rome fell, when the building project stopped, when the master builders died or fled, the apprenticeships ended. No one was trained. The knowledge died with the last generation. By the medieval period, people looked at Roman concrete structures and didn't understand how they were built. They assumed the Romans had magic, or divine help, or lost sciences that couldn't be recovered. It wasn't until the 1700s that engineers began experimenting with concrete again, and not until the 1800s that Portland cement was developed. But even then, they didn't know about Roman volcanic ash concrete. That wasn't rediscovered until archaeological and chemical analysis in the 20th century. We lost 1,500 years. 1,500 years when we could have been building structures that lasted millennia, but instead, we forgot and had to start over. In the 3rd century AD, Chinese engineers built a device called the south-pointing chariot. It looked like a small carriage with a figure mounted on top. The figure held an outstretched arm, pointing. No matter which direction the chariot traveled, the figure always pointed south. Even if the chariot turned, circled, or zigzagged, the figure maintained its orientation. It wasn't a compass. It didn't use magnets. It was entirely mechanical. The chariot used a differential gear system. As the wheels turned, gears inside the chariot calculated the difference in rotation between the left and right wheels. That difference indicated turning. The gears adjusted the figure's position to compensate, keeping it pointing in the original direction. It was an ancient gyroscope, a mechanical inertial navigation system, built 1700 years before modern gyroscopes. Contemporary Chinese texts describe the device. The Book of Song, compiled around 500 AD, and the records of the Three Kingdoms mention it. Imperial processions used south-pointing chariots for ceremonial purposes. But by the Song dynasty, 960 to 1279 AD, the technique for building them had been lost. Song emperors wanted south-pointing chariots for ceremonies. Engineers tried to rebuild them based on ancient descriptions. Some succeeded, others failed. The knowledge was fragmentary. And by the time of the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644 AD, no one could build them anymore. The technique was completely forgotten. Modern researchers have reconstructed working models. In 1947, a British engineer built a functional replica based on ancient descriptions and mechanical principles. In 2004, Chinese researchers built another working model. The mechanism works, the principle is sound. But the original technique, the exact gear ratios, the materials used, the manufacturing methods, is lost. Why did it disappear? Because it was a luxury. The south-pointing chariot had no practical use. It was a demonstration of engineering skill, a status symbol for emperors. Impressive, but not essential. When dynasties changed, when workshops were destroyed, when master craftsmen died without passing on the full technique, the knowledge faded. By the medieval period, people remembered that such devices once existed, but no one knew how to make them. The technology became legend, then myth, then forgotten entirely, until modern historians and engineers rediscovered the descriptions and said, wait, this is actually possible, and rebuilt it. But we're rebuilding from scratch, using modern knowledge of gears and mechanics. We're not using the original technique. We're using what we think the technique might have been. The real method died centuries ago. The Antikythera mechanism sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, behind glass, corroded, broken, but analyzed, understood. We know how it worked. But we can't build an exact replica using ancient methods because those methods are lost. We can make something that functions the same way using modern tools, CNC machines, computer-aided design, precision manufacturing. But that's not the same. That's using modern knowledge to recreate an ancient result. The original knowledge, the techniques the ancient Greeks actually used, is gone. The same with Damascus steel. We can make steel with carbon nanotubes using laboratories and controlled processes, but we can't replicate the traditional forging methods because the ore is gone. The masters are dead. The workshops are dust. Roman concrete. We understand the chemistry. We can make it in labs, but we don't build with it, because our economic system doesn't value 2,000-year durability. Greek fire. We can guess at the formula, make something similar, but the exact mixture? Lost. These weren't primitive technologies. They were sophisticated, advanced, in some cases superior to modern equivalents. But they disappeared, not because they were bad, because they were fragile. Because knowledge is fragile. Always has been, always will be. And the lesson for us today is simple. What we don't preserve, we lose. The machines from the past are warnings, evidence of what happens when civilizations don't protect their knowledge, when transmission breaks, when apprenticeships end, when libraries burn, when workshops close. We like to think we're immune. We have computers, databases, the internet. Knowledge is preserved digitally, accessible forever. But is it? Digital files corrupt. Formats become obsolete. Websites disappear. Servers fail. Companies go bankrupt and delete their archives. And embodied knowledge, the kind you gain from doing, from practice, from decades of experience, can't be digitized. It has to be taught, person to person, master to apprentice. If we stop teaching it, it dies. Just like it died in ancient Greece, in medieval Damascus, in Renaissance Italy. The machines are proof. Not proof of ancient aliens, not proof of lost super civilizations, proof of something simpler and more important. Human knowledge is powerful, but it's not permanent. It requires effort to preserve, institutions to support, teachers to transmit. And when those systems break, knowledge disappears, faster than you'd think, more completely than you'd expect. The Antikythera mechanism was forgotten for 2,000 years, found by accident at the bottom of the sea. How much else is still lost, still buried, still forgotten? And how much of what we know today will be lost 1,000 years from now? If this changed how you see history and knowledge, subscribe, because the past is full of lessons, machines that worked, techniques that succeeded, knowledge that mattered, and then disappeared. I'll show you what was lost and why it matters every single time. Because the machines don't lie, the evidence is real, and the pattern is clear. Advanced technology existed, and then it vanished. The question is, will we learn from that or repeat it?